Hi everybody, we're in my studio today because a friend of mine and also a customer who comes to our shop, the American Girl Consignment, purchased 3 American Girl dolls secondhand, and she brought them over to me. She purchased Kit, Kirsten, and Felicity. And the reason she brought them to me is the legs. Her leg is very loose, and Kirsten's leg is incredibly loose, a lot looser than Felicity's, and so is Kit's legs. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to repair all 3 legs, and I put it on video because I also want her to see how I do it, because she's also thinking about learning how to repair the legs of the dolls. So let's get started. The first thing you do is we have to take off the doll's head. And there are a lot of doll repair videos, a lot of videos to tighten American Girl doll legs on YouTube. And you can definitely take a look at those. What I do is I do something a little different in that, put her down here. When I tighten the legs, I don't use elastic. I use cabling. And I'll talk more about that later when we get there. And I'll explain why I do that. So what I'm trying to do here is take the knot off and loosen that, because we need to take off her head. Kit's neck strings are very tight. I used my pliers here to loosen it up a little bit. And so what I'm doing is grabbing it and just being very careful and just loosening the neck strings. Almost done taking it completely out. Okay. Now, we got Kit's head off. And what we have here, I'm going to loosen it. I'm going to keep, of course, keep the neck string in place. And I'll move these 2 other dolls over. And I'm going to make a big pile here of the stuffing. What I'm going to show you now is this is one of the legs. And basically, what I'm going to do is pull this and just tighten the leg here. Now, what I do is get my cutter. I love this cutter. I'll put pictures of my tools and where to get it at the end of this video. I just cut a piece of this cabling. This is plastic coated cabling and you start twisting it around. Like if you're people who make jewelry have a name for it. Just start twisting the wire around and around till you have something that looks like this. And then you keep going, because what you want to do is to create several loops. And so you have this. This is what I'm going to use for today. And what I do is I feed it in between the white dome part and the elastic. Basically, I'm just going to keep winding the wire till there's enough of a stack that it tightens the legs. And the wire is very thick and it's coated in plastic. So I feel very confident that it's going to be safe for the dolls. And you use about 2 inches, not a whole lot of wire. And you press with your hand and just keep twisting and twisting till you end up with something like this. I think this is enough. This is probably about, oops, I dropped it. This is about 1/2 inch. And you feed it in. You just open it a little bit and you just feed it in, and then you twist like one of those spiral notebooks till everything is through. I will show you what I'm doing. See, you feed it in. See, you feed it in so it's at the top, and then all you do is twist around and just feeding it through like a spiral notebook. So I'm going to make another spiral and do that with the other leg. So, and the spiral, you just keep winding around and around. Till you get a spiral that's sort of the same. You could just eyeball it till it's sort of the same. It helps to have your tool with you, because as you tighten it, it'll be a little harder to do. I see most people on YouTube using the elastics, and that is fine too. It's just that I have a lot of dolls, and I have a lot of things to do with them, and I don't want to have to do this again, because my kids play with the dolls. We redress the dolls, so the dolls are being played with. I mean, American Girl dolls are expensive, but they're not precious. They're made by the millions, so you do want to play with them, change them, dress them, do everything. And you don't want to have to do this kind of repair very frequently. And I find that if you use elastic, the legs are also, the ties here are also elastic. They're going to get worn after a while, but I don't think this will. Look at this spiral. It stays there. What I'm going to do is use my tool to crimp it together, and I'll show you that. This feels really tight to me, and I'm just, tightening all the loops there. See, now it's in there, and that feels really good. You see? It's just a heavy gauge wire that you tighten around it, and at the top you press it really tight, because it is going over the metal part, and it won't unloop itself because it's going to be encased in the fiber fill. And so what I do is I just tighten it at the beginning, right under the gold metal piece. Just tighten it, put it really tight, and this wire that I'm using is pretty stiff. And so the last piece, I just tighten that. Okay, so now both legs have their wire spirals around the elastic. So you can see this one and this one. So this thick, heavy gauge wire is wrapped around both elastics. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is put all this fiber fill back into Kit's body. And you really want to start right at the bottom and put it really tight. Make sure you cover all the work that we just did, and which will also protect it. So you just push it all the way down and make sure you have all the wire covered, the original wire and the original metal parts from that the doll came with, everything covered nice and tight, and you work from the bottom up. Okay, and just finished putting the fiber fill in the body. And sometimes you want to use a dowel to just make sure you get everything in there, make it nice and tight. And when I'm done, before I put the head on, I do this to the doll to make sure that the legs stay up. As you can see, both legs are staying up nice, so you know that the leg is tight enough. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the head. And I like to have the head face the back. I know it could be a little disconcerting, but it's the easiest way to tie it without getting the hair in your way. So just make sure that everything is pushed in there, and then you tie a knot. And when I received her, she had 3 knots. And that's what I'm going to do. And tighten a little bit. Tighten a little bit, make sure that everything is in, that there's no fiber fill peeking out. Okay, then you keep going. Then I check again. Okay, make sure it's nicely centered, and then you tie it really tight. Oh, there she goes. A little too tight. Okay. Okay, now that's pretty tight, but I give it one more look. Yes, okay, that's good. Nice and tight in the middle. You hold on tight here. You hold on to the knot, you loop it around. So that's 2 knots, and this is 3. And then you turn her head around, and her leg stays up. She's good. She's good to go. Let's make sure she can stand on her own. I always like to do that. And she's standing on her own. So right now I'm going to do the same thing with Kirsten and Felicity. Take Felicity next. She also has long neck strings. She's a Pleasant Company doll. And I will now tighten her legs. As you can see, before we start, put her leg up and it goes down. Felicity is completely stuffed now. The blue spirals are in both legs. She can now lay totally horizontal and the legs don't come down. So she looks good. I feel comfortable that the legs are tight enough. Okay, so now I will attach her head. She has nice long neck strings. She is an older doll, a Pleasant Company doll, but her body has stayed really nice condition. So to make sure, the tricky part with this is make sure you get all the fiber fill inside. Okay, that looks good. So now I will just tighten her strings and do 3 knots. So now Felicity is done. You can tell the Pleasant Company dolls are a little thicker. And this is how she came to me, and now she can stand on her own. And the next doll we're going to work on is Kirsten. Kirsten has zip tie closure. My client did buy her secondhand, and this is the way she got her. So I will cut the zip tie and take off her head and make sure that I put both the blue spirals on. As you can see, her legs are pretty loose. So I will cut the zip tie, put the spirals on her legs, and restuff her. Okay, so we've used those blue spiral wires on Kirsten's legs, and they're perfectly horizontal. So it means that her legs are tight enough. That's my little test, like I mentioned before. So now I'm going to attach her head. I've already put in the zip tie that I'm going to use because I like to return the dolls the way I found them. And also my client didn't ask for neck strings, which I could have supplied as well. So now I'm going to put this in. Okay. Now with the zip tie, unlike the strings, you really just have to hold it tight. I use my little needle nose pliers here, and I just pull, then I pull again, and now I use the pliers just to tighten it. See, I put the pliers here, try not to touch the doll, and then you twist around. Okay. And it needs to be a little tighter. Let me see. It needs to be just a little bit tighter. Okay. Now, because they're not strings and her hair is in a ponytail, you could actually put it, put her face facing the front of her body, and she's good. However, I will like to put the neck, tighten it a little bit more. See, there's a lot of zip tie left. I'm going to cut that off with my cutters. I love these cutters. So just want to make sure it's tight enough. And then I'm going to cut off the excess, and then she'll be good to go. So I just cut off the excess. And now she can stand on her own. Get her to stand. And she's standing. So this is my video for repairing 3 American Girl dolls. They belong to a client of mine, and I tightened all 3 pairs of legs with my blue wire instead of an elastic. I have a lot of this wire, and I make a spiral, and then I tighten the legs. So here are all the dolls that we did today. Oh, look at Kit's hair. We did all these dolls today. These 3 dolls have been tightened. Their legs are tight. They're good to go. And they'll be going back to their owner. And she's a regular client of ours at American Girl Consignment. Thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. And if you want to see any other types of repairs, please leave it in the comments.